On PM Express tonight, a very important conversation. Votes of censure against the senior minister. Justified action for Aisha One Gaf. And that's what we'll be examining today. There is an unprecedented action that a minority is initiating in Parliament that we have to be interrogating on the back of all the conversations and criticisms that we witnessed over the last few weeks. There's a background to this. A minority in Parliament has filed what we're learning is a motion seeking to ask the House to pass a vote of censure against the senior minister, Osafo Marfo, for comments that he made in the US. That the minority is coming under certain clauses in the Constitution, Article 82 to be very specific, and also they are citing portions of the Parliament-owned Standing Orders 108 to back the decision that they decided to take. Now, the senior minister's comments suggesting that the deportation of Aisha One, for example, was far important than enforcement of our own laws has attracted a lot of criticism by many, including Senior General Kukubako himself, who a good friend of Osafo Marfo, himself had condemned it. The Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining have condemned it as well. Many civil society organizations have demanded an apology from the senior minister. That hasn't happened yet. There has been an attempt, rather, to try and justify and explain away those comments. We've seen that the National Democratic Congress itself have also asked the senior minister to step aside. The minority has collected so far, we understand, some 94 signatures already. We'll get an update on this, which really triggers the process of censure in Parliament. It's not a choice that the Speaker has. It's a constitutional injunction once the right numbers have been collected to back this. The legal requirement, though, is 92 signatures, which is 1/3 of all MPs in Parliament, and the minority alone have more than that, but will need 180 MPs to vote in support of the motion for it to be upheld, and that is an uphill task. We'll be interrogating whether this is an exercise in futility, and if it is, why is the minority pursuing this angle? Is there a political point to score there? We'll interrogate that shortly. But the big question, is this justified, really? For all that you've heard, as far as this matter is concerned, is this the right step to take? And one of the things that you find in the discussion is that part of this may force the senior minister to Parliament to explain to the people's representative why he said this. So far, the criticisms and the public appeals to him has failed to do this, but this may just force him to do that. We'll also expand on that. We're in two locations tonight for you, in the studio and out of the studio, as we begin to delve into this matter. Stay with us. When we return for the break, my guests are seated. We'll begin to delve into the contentious issues. My guest in the studio tonight is Inusa Fuseni. He is a minority spokesperson on constitutional legal affairs, but specifically is a ranking member of the Constitutional Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee in Parliament. Thank you, Honorable, for your time here.
Thank you.
On PM Express. And as you can see behind me, also joining us is Vladimir Nchudanso, is international relations expert. Dr. Vladimir, thank you for your time here on PM Express.
You're very welcome.
Yes. We're grateful that you're able to join us wherever you are. I want to first start because I'm just learning that this is the first time that this particular provision in the Constitution is being triggered to get a minister of state possibly sacked, resigned, or forcefully removed from office. True or false? Is that the case?
Yes.
This is the first time.
My research clearly shows that this is the first time that we are seeking to invoke the legislative authority of Parliament to sanction a minister.
Okay. What does it mean, motion of censure?
A motion of censure is basically a motion that is brought against a government appointee, particularly the minister, where the minister has done or conducted himself in ways that brings the integrity of Ghana into, or his office into disrepute.
Okay.
And it's just like an impeachment proceedings, but this time against a minister of state.
And in specific terms, what do you require to make this, and this is a constitutional provision.
Yes.
What do you require to be successful?
Well, first of all, you require the whole motion has to come under Order 108 or the Standing Orders of Parliament, which is a statutory reenactment of the Constitution and Article 82, the same words. So you have to file a motion. The motion must be supported by signatures of members of Parliament, not less than 1/3. The motion, when filed, will have to be debated within 14 days.
And this is a shall be debated within 14 days.
And then the minister will have opportunity to be heard when the motion is being debated. And
he chooses to exercise the right or not.
If he chooses to exercise the right not to come, well, he would have been given the right to speak, and he would have fulfilled the requirement of natural justice, that you must hear the other side, before you convict. And then the matter will be put to a vote. If 2/3 members of Parliament elect to censure the minister, then he is removed from office.
The Constitution actually gives him the first right to resign, even after if he lost, if he loses.
Yes.
He has a choice to say, oh, I've lost this on the floor, and I'm resigning.
And I'm resigning.
If he doesn't, then the mantle falls to the president
to fire him.
To fire him. Now, let's clear out a few things. How many signatures do you have now?
We have between 94 and 97 signatures.
Okay, so that qualifies for it to...
Because we needed 92, we got 97. Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
so this is not left to the discretion of the Speaker of Parliament.
The Speaker has no discretion in this matter.
Okay, so within 14 days, the Speaker must bring this to the floor for a debate.
Very well.
Would you be back, though, in 14 days?
No, the 14 days, one might interpret that to mean 14 sitting days, and that if that is so, then now that we are on recess, that won't count.
Okay.
Or, we can only count one day, the day it was filed. That was a sitting day of Parliament. And so, it's not so clear whether it's 14 sitting days or 14 ordinary days. But I'm tempted to believe that the Speaker will count it as 14 sitting days.
Okay.
And so, we might have to wait until we resume on 28th, and the time will begin to run.
We'll start counting. And there shall be a debate.
There shall be a debate.
So it's not as if once the Speaker accepts it, the vote goes straight to the vote.
No, there shall be a debate.
This is going to be played out in Parliament in the form of a debate.
In the form of a debate set out, is in the nature of half-hour motion, a matter of national importance. But this time, you're not debating a matter of national importance just for a resolution. You are debating to censure. And so you have some time. The Speaker might determine the time allocated to each speaker. He might even determine the number of speakers in Parliament. The motion will be supported by evidence of why he should be censured.
You have the evidence?
We have the evidence. We have the evidence of his statement in the town hall meeting in the United States of America, where he sought to justify the deportation of a Chinese national who had flouted the laws of this country on the basis of economic gain. And we just think that clearly doesn't sit with the tenets of the Constitution. It doesn't sit with the values and norms of this country. Our traditions have always said, held and captured in the coat of arms that, look, we pursue freedom and justice. Now, the justice of the matter requires that anybody who acts with impunity in this country, who defies the laws of this country, who conducts himself in such a way as to bring him or herself within the laws of the country, must be dealt with in accordance with the laws. We do so because civilized jurisdictions, civilized countries, will punish in order to inform others who might want to take that path. Now, we are in the middle of a crisis where our water bodies are being polluted with careless abandon.
And the president has staked his own political future on fixing that problem.
On that, we are in a state where insecurity is on the increase in the gold-bearing areas, where children can no longer go to school because of the easy attraction to money, where open pits are left which pose a danger to society, where mercury is being used in the process of winning gold, which has dire health implications. And we are faced with a choice to either enforce the laws of the country to ensure that people are punished and punished severely for acts that despoil the environment. Now, it totally flies in the face of justice. Justice. To say that somebody who has conducted himself in the area of small-scale mining, contrary to the Act 703, which is the Minerals and Mining Act, which says that foreigners, in the first instance, foreigners are not supposed to engage in small-scale mining. When she was arrested, she was charged with engaging in small-scale mining. 2, she was providing mining support services without valid documentation from the Minerals Commission. 3, she hired, recruited, employed foreigners as well to help her in her illegal activities. If you are talking about impunity, how far can you go to identify that?
Let me bring in Dr. Blackman. So, Doc, is this action by the minority, which we're now learning is the first in the Fourth Republican parliamentary history, is this necessary, knowing what, I guess, the charge is?
Personally, if you ask me, I wouldn't say it is very necessary. But, well, politics is politics, and we are all students of politics. So I'm intrigued, and I want to see how it pans out, because we are now learning something from our Constitution. Why am I saying it's not very necessary? Because it's not a demeanor which is that serious concerning his job, concerning something that he has done against the state, against his job, in such a way that if he's not resigning, we must invoke these sections in our Constitution. I think it's an exercise which is intriguing, which is good to test something. I think my very good friend there, Fusedi, knows it, that I don't think it has a good chance of succeeding. But let us see how it pans out.
And now, this is the thing, though. If you consider that the Osafo Marfo is a minister and therefore swore an oath to at all times protect the Constitution of the Republic, which indeed makes him, I guess, a primus inter pares among citizens in terms of protection of the rights enshrined in the Constitution. And yet he says to us that we broke the law because of our economic interests. Isn't that serious enough to warrant this action? I mean, I'm asking this because you don't think it's necessary.
Absolutely not. It's interesting. I do not think that what I heard from him says that we intentionally have broken the law because somebody is giving us money. I didn't like the way he put it, I must confess. He should have been more diplomatic about it, saying that in actual fact, if you weigh what we are spending, our efforts, and putting Aisha 1 in prison over here against the relationship that we get from China, one would say that it were better if you didn't prosecute and you ask for a noli prosequi and persona non grata ask her to be taken away. But he put it in a way that was a little sour. And I don't think anybody is very happy about the way he put it.
So for you, it's about the way
the law. I think.
So for you, it's about the way he communicated it, and not the substance of what did happen. Okay, I see.
The substance is what I'm trying to exact from what I think I heard from him, and it happens every time. Everywhere. In Ghana, we have had noli prosequi several times. And under noli prosequi, I'm not a lawyer, but what I know about it is that you don't even have to explain why you are not going ahead. Normally, a noli prosequi would mean that the government might find it expedient not to continue because of some costs to the government. It could be something the government would lose the case, or government would be embarrassed by the case, or because of something government is getting elsewhere. And from the point of view of international relations, I would think that that is why Aisha 1 was let loose, that it were better if you give a salami method of international relations, that is, give something small out and get something big, which we do in international relations all the time.
But Vladimir, isn't this a different case, though? Sacrificing your constitutional responsibility to uphold the Constitution, I guess, justice, etc., on the altar of good relations with another country. Isn't that, I mean, the point
been
is...
done several times in international relations. Has America not kind of reneged on its position as the vanguard of democracy by not being harsh on Saudi Arabia, even though Khashoggi was killed like a rat? So these things are done. In international relations, yes, even some bigger things can be sacrificed. And for me,
can I put the question?
I'm angry at the fact that...
Can I put the question this way? International relations, is it accepted for one country to burn its rules, its laws, almost violate its constitution and its oaths, just so we can please another foreign power?
I think I need to be tutored about what part of the Constitution was kind of infracted. I mean, there were any infraction of the Constitution.
Let me read that to you. And this, I want to go to the constitutional provision that talks about the oath that Osafo Marfo swore when he was appointed as a minister.
Yes.
And confirmed. And he's a cabinet minister. So under the cabinet minister's oath, he would have sworn and said, I'm quoting from the Constitution, I, having been appointed member of the cabinet, first will not reveal secrets. That's one. It says, and that member cabinet do in the name of the Almighty God swear solemnly affirm that I will not directly or indirectly reveal such matters as shall be debated in the cabinet and committed to my secrecy, and that I will uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. This Constitution says nobody is above the law. We are all equal before the law, and the rights must be applied equally. If he says to us that other Ghanaians have been jailed, and yet a foreigner is let go because of economic reasons, that is a violation, some may interpret, of the oath as specified in the Constitution.
This is subject to serious interpretation. The way you are interpreting it is not the way I would interpret it.
How would you interpret it?
Because, yes, he swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And he's upholding the Constitution, and I'm not talking on his behalf. What I'm saying is that what has happened does not in any way constitute an infraction of the Constitution. Okay. He didn't declare Aisha 1 free. It was the same constitutional process that was used to declare Aisha 1 free. Nolli prosequi, exportation, deportation, and whatever. And none of these things infracts the Constitution. Mm. So for me, it's a demeanor which is you can rebuke, but does not constitute that infraction that should send him to jail or to before Parliament and that sort of. But as I'm saying, it is the constitutional right of the opposition to try this measure, because we have never tried it before. Mm. And I would like to see how it pans out. We all learn.
Let me come back to Mr. Fuseni. Dr. Zanuti has a point, hasn't he, that Nolli prosequi, it's a legal tool. So executed by the Attorney General of this country, rightfully so. Deportation is another tool allowed by our laws and our country's laws. If somebody violates your law, you can choose not to prosecute and deport the person. We've seen that in other jurisdictions where, in the U.S., Ghanaians who have violated U.S. law, currently there's a huge debate, tussle between Ghana and the U.S. In fact, the U.S. has restricted our visas because Ghanaians who have broken the law in the U.S. seeks to deport them to Ghana. They're not prosecuting them there and jailing them. They could have. So where is the violation of the Constitution, for example?
First of all, your analogy doesn't sink.
Doesn't?
Ghanaians in the U.S. have overstayed their welcome in the U.S.
Which is an illegality.
Now, they should try despoiling the environment in the U.S. They should try killing exotic species. They should try exposing the lives of the people of the U.S. to chemical, radiation or whatever, and see what will happen to them. Mm. I mean, when the Ghanaian broke the law in the United Kingdom, he was imprisoned before he was deported. A similar incident happened in Tanzania. Chinese was caught harvesting ivory tax. Tanzania owes more money to China than Ghana. Mm. She was imprisoned for 15 years. So
I guess Dr. Vladimir's point, where is the illegality?
The illegality
in what Osafo Marfo said.
The
that
illegality springs from the biblical quotation that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
But
we not know.
But that's not law.
We not. Oh, what? Law is founded on what?
I was hoping you're going to cook me a constitutional provision.
No, that's the illegality. I mean, the illegality. Now, no one said that the Attorney General had any, and even if that is debatable, because when you read Article 296 of the Constitution and put it against the common law principle of noli pros quo, Article 296, common law principle of noli pros quo is a discretionary power vested in the Attorney General. The Article 296 of the Constitution says that where a discretionary power is vested in a person, that person has to use the discretionary power in accordance with Article 296. So there is a limitation on the exercise of fair, candid, not prejudicial, and all those things. That is there. That is there. So even
but you still haven't told me
jurisprudentially, you can't even argue now that the common law principle of noli pros quo does not require an answer. No, you can't say that. I mean, but we
which law did Osafo Marfo break? For which reason he should lose his job?
Broke.
He affected our sensibilities. That's all.
Osafo Marfo broke the laws of the Constitution.
Which one?
The Constitution says, okay, that there is equality before the law. Even the preamble of the Constitution states clearly that this our Constitution is founded on freedom, justice, probity, and accountability. Yeah. Okay? Now, the sovereignty resides in the people of this country, Article 1. Okay? Article 11, the laws of the country, the Constitution, the acts of Parliament, present Parliament, acts of previous Parliament, and all those. Okay? Now, the Section 99 or Act 703 is part of the laws of this country. Article Act 703 is part of the laws passed to deal with illegal mining, which is a canker in this country. Osafo Marfo was a member of Parliament in Parliament when the laws were passed. I don't think that Osafo Marfo sat in Parliament passing the law with a view that it not be implemented. Now, because that is an act of Parliament, to treat an act of Parliament with impunity, the way Osafo Marfo captured it in the United States, is to lessen the sanctity, reduce the sanctity of Parliament. In fact, it's an assault on Parliament. That Parliament's laws actually can be treated with impunity. Okay? 2, now, you never project your country, even in international relations. You don't project your country as a country that can sell justice for economic gain. You never do that. In fact, it's an indictment on this country that we present ourselves that justice in this country can be for sale. No. Probably that in the Telonic era it could happen, but not now.
Dr. Vladimir says it's not unusual in diplomatic circles for this to happen.
It's very, I disagree with him. In diplomatic circles, prisoners that are part of the equation are prisoners that are categorized as political prisoners or war prisoners, not common criminals.
No. You think Aisha One was a common criminal?
She was a common criminal.
She wasn't convicted of that, any of that.
Oh, she was a common criminal. She was violating the law. She was arrested. She was sent to court several times. She was, in fact, remanded in prison custody the first time she appeared. Second time, remanded in prison custody, but later granted bail. She appeared before court. She was remanded. The charges were preferred against her. In fact, the first charges which were preferred against her were resisted by Occupy Ghana.
They thought it was too lenient.
And so, I mean, the legitimate expectation of the people of this country was that she be dealt with.
Let me put something to Dr. Vladimir Chudan. So, Ines of Hussein makes a point that in international circles, you cannot argue that it's a standard practice or it's not unusual to sell your country's reputation, sovereignty for economic gain, and that where is the example to back that claim?
There are several examples. I was giving you one. I've given you Khashoggi's killing. America doesn't see the need to pursue it to the hilt. The sanctions
that
against
Khashoggi was
Russia,
not
sanctions
murdered.
against Venezuela.
Except that Khashoggi was not murdered in the U.S. The crime wasn't committed in the U.S. It was committed in a foreign country.
The fact is that Khashoggi's murder was not a crime against America.
Yeah, I mean, so just a second. That's a question I'm asking. Khashoggi's murder was not a crime against America.
Can I make my point?
Please, yes.
Can I get my point so that you are able to see the link?
Yes.
Supposing it were Venezuela where Khashoggi was killed, what do you think America would have done? Or it was in Syria or in Iran? There would have been serious sanctions. But if America is gaining something from that, it would close its eyes against this dastardly act because of what he's gaining from Saudi Arabia, for example. All right? And what I'm saying is this, that yes, we can rebuke Osafo Marfo for the way he put it. But if we want the criminality of his utterances, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I doubt if we are going to find any criminality in what or any incriminating thing against him. And as I said, in international relations, look, you always give something small to get something big. I think that is what he wanted to say. And in our own history, we have had instances where we have let some people go, and some of us have been angry. This Aisha one, I personally was angry, and my anger was directed against the noli prosequi order. And my good friend Idris Husseini knows that they have, in Ghana, we have always used noli prosequi to let some people go, and the public is angry. You don't have to explain. And up till now, we may not know, even Osafo Marfo may not necessarily know seriously why the government decided noli prosequi. Because it ends there. You don't even have to ask why. Unfortunately, Mr. Osafo Marfo goofed by telling us that he was let loose because of what we get from China. If that is it, so be it. We signed several agreements with America, with China, with whatever it is. If you put it to the public opinion, wouldn't have gone there. But the government sacrifices in order to get something big. That's all I'm saying. It's a principle. I mean, you don't have to ask questions. But my problem is that what is happening is a little funny in the sense that we will not, if not for politics' sake, we will not find anything incriminating against Osafo Marfo.
So you think what the minorities pursuing?
I think our anger should have been directed against the Attorney General.
Okay, now, but that's a very good point. I'll come to Idris Husseini on the Attorney General bit. But very quickly, so you believe what the minority is pursuing is a political action for political gain, for political capital?
It's a wild goose chase. But for me, it's an intellectual thing because I'm going to learn from it what happens. You know, one way or the other, we all test the Constitution, and this is one of the tests of the Constitution. Yeah. That's to the extent to which this thing becomes intriguing. But I don't see how they're going to succeed in getting Osafo Marfo out, except if Mr. Osafo Marfo himself wants to go out.
You think he himself should take the initiative?
I'm not saying so. What I'm thinking is that until he himself wants to go out, this action cannot get him out.
Yeah, I get the point. Your good friend Kuku Baku Jr. has said that he himself shouldn't be pushed. He should own this and say either one, apologize
exactly,
or resign.
Exactly. If he's so embarrassed and he wants to go, fair enough. But this action, I don't think is the trigger point. Okay,
so my question to you is, you are leaving it to him to make the decision. I'm saying that should he make the decision himself?
If he does, I mean, it is his right. If the kitchen is too hot, you get out of it. So if this is part of the pressure to get him out, I have no quarrel about that. But I'm saying this action is a wild goose chase.
Wild goose chase, Mr. Husseini. This is a political decision you're taking to score some political
This is not a political decision, and I'm surprised that my good friend and lecturer, Dr. Vladimir Ekidasu, says this. Number one, Osafo Marfo traveled to the United States as part of the government delegation. He went on our resources. In fact, the town hall where the meeting took place was paid for by our resources. And this is this same man who, without compulsion, without prompting, without any responsibility to explain why government deported Aisha 1, voluntarily made a statement. Which statement? hugely embarrassed this country. Hugely. I mean, in fact, it would be an understatement to say that his statement brought global shame and embarrassment to this country. It ridiculed the country. And you think that it should not, Osafo Marfo should not be fired? I mean, I don't know where we are taking politics to. This motion is a motion that is non-party. In fact, is intended to achieve a national goal, a national objective, to sanitize executive office holders and prevent them from exercising executive impunity. I say it, and so what? I mean, I don't think that Dr. Vladimir Nchudasu is suggesting that we should encourage executive impunity. To embarrass the country?
Absolutely not.
Not. To embarrass the country with at this huge, huge expense and make us a laughing stock should not attract sanctions.
I'm curious to find out if Don agrees that this has exposed Ghana to international ridicule and our sovereignty has been called into question. Doc, you agree?
I don't think that it was something that has given us international ridicule. I think nobody paid attention to it even until we ourselves raised it. I was embarrassed, I must confess. The way
but if you were embarrassed, isn't that what most Ghanaians will feel across the world?
Absolutely. If I'm embarrassed, but Mr. Fuseni knows that he's been in government for a long time. How many times have we gotten government officials pronouncing things that they even don't understand? It brings embarrassment. But it ends there when it doesn't hurt the country in any way.
But hasn't this hurt the country in any way?
If the country is angry, but wait, excuse me, if the country is angry, the person then decides whether to resign or not. And I'm saying where we are taking it on the legal front, it's ridiculous a little, because I don't see why and how this can trigger a government. Then of course, if we succeed, then I'm telling you 1 million times it will become a precedent against even people like Fuseni himself someday.
Yes, it should.
That's what I'm saying.
It should, because you see, there should be a self-restraining, force for any executive authority in making pronouncements, because of the enormous responsibility placed on the executive. Okay, because it's leadership.
So what will be the parameters for measuring that?
There will be many parameters. Many. Vote of censure are many parameters. Maybe some that we cannot even contemplate. Okay? Maybe in future, someone will say something of lesser importance, and then a vote of censure will apply. Now, the most important is that a vote of censure has been part of the constitutional architecture of our country. It got statutorily reenacted in our standing orders. We have never used it. Let's go to Parliament, argue. There are many people who were embarrassed, whose sensibilities were hurt by Osafo Marfo's statement. Not only members of Parliament. I listened to a member of the Council of State who said that it was not wise.
That he said that.
He said that.
He says Council of State will also look into the matter.
Yes.
No, but Vladimir raised a very important point also. That why not the Attorney General? She took the decision, the legal decision, to discontinue the case.
Yes.
Why are you holding the man who went to communicate it and not the woman who actually did it?
So, because of the clock of non-obligatory right to disclose reasons, the Attorney General can enter a nolle prosequi and say, okay, unless she's compelled by court to disclose the reasons. And so she hides, and that was done for good reason. It was done for good reason because, you know, that's a common law relief. And the history of that, the development of the common law relief was that the court was the king's court or the queen's court. And you could not compel the king or the queen in Britain to give reasons for why her courts were not prosecuting or pursuing somebody. You could not ask. I mean, you could only ask by suffering the pain of death. You couldn't do that. Now, that is why in new institutional arrangements put in place through rational decision making, we have established a constitution and provided for all institutions which we think should regulate our
So
conduct.
don't you think a better course of action will be going to court? Because I've heard lawyers, very senior lawyers say that the way nolle prosequi currently is and hasn't been expanded on, nobody has invited the Supreme Court to sort of flesh it out, is the reason why it's so open to abuse. Isn't the proper course of action will be for the minority to go to court and file a case on the Supreme Court demanding the Attorney General to explain and let it.
Why do we need the Attorney General to explain? What was Osafo Marfo explained?
No, but that's the thing, right? But
Osafo Marfo is the third most senior member of this government.
But Osafo Marfo's thing doesn't expand our jurisprudence. If you get a court to make a pronouncement and possibly declare that nolle prosequi, yes, it's a discretionary power, but when it's done, must come with an explanation. That is expanding.
I've already told you, it has not been tested in court, but I believe sincerely that nolle prosequi, being a common law relief, is subject to the Constitution, subject to the written Constitution, and is subject to Article 296.
But only the Supreme Court can make this clearer.
I have no doubt
you
in my
disagree
mind.
that only the Supreme Court can make this clearer?
No. There's no issue of interpretation there.
There isn't?
There isn't.
There is, isn't
It's a discretionary power.
But yes,
and there's no discretionary power. That's a sacrosanct in Ghana. It must be exercised in accordance with the Constitution.
Okay, the direct question to you. Was this exercised under the limitations of within the realm of discretion?
Yeah, it was under the
But you're definitely not happy. People were objecting to it.
I myself objected to it. Yeah. I filed a question in Parliament. The question was admitted but never listed. Yes, and so, but as a lawyer, I understood why it was not listed. Because they didn't think that, the Speaker did not think that the Attorney General owed me an answer. Okay, because he's also a lawyer, a common law lawyer, and so he thought. But I also filed a question. I was embarrassed. In fact, I was shocked and scandalized that we decided to, after so many court attendances, to deport Aisha.
Now, I want to take a quick break. I want to return. I'll explore, because the president really, and the parliamentary also makes this point, that this is a wild goose chase. Because if you look at even the clause 82 that we are using, the president has the final say on what you do. Even if you win by 2/3, he still has the final say. I will explore that. I want to return the wild goose chase. And Doc, I want to return. I'll ask you the sovereignty question. The sovereignty question. Haven't we really, in the wake of what Osafo Marfo had said, and we continue to deal with China, isn't this an indication of that?
Weak state.
We are exactly a weak state, and we are sacrificing our sovereignty, and China is gradually taking control. Stay with us here on PMS. When we return, we'll delve into that. You're live on PM Express. We're still exploring this historical motion that has been filed in Parliament, triggering a censure debate that will be happening 14 days, hopefully after Parliament resumes, that may lead to the removal of the senior minister. It's never been triggered before under the Fourth Republican Constitution, and the fact the minority is trying to see if they can have their way on this. Thankfully, it's going to be by a secret vote. And they will need 2/3 of the House, which a huge chunk of the majority side will have to vote for them, assuming they even get all the MMS to join them. It's going to be a very interesting debate. It's all about, the comments made by Osafo Marfo. Vladimir Chidanso is still with us and live from his home. I guess you can see there. Dr. Vladimir, on the sovereignty question,
yes,
doesn't this significantly erode this country's sovereignty, another key pillar of the 1992 Constitution?
It's very funny when I hear people talk about sovereignty in that sense. Today's sovereignty, let's be educated on it. The structural realists will tell you plainly that the structure of the globe, the structure of the world, creates the extent to which your sovereignty can be exercised. When IMF tells you cut down on housing, education, etc., don't employ people for 3 years, and you oblige, are you selling your sovereignty? That is the reality of today. Globalization has taken your policy space, and therefore your policy is kind of shaped by what you can do within the realms of globalization, within the realms of realism. America has put a lot of sanctions on Iran, on Venezuela, on North Korea, China. So if Ghana wants to deal with North Korea or Iran, We cannot do it. Is that selling our sovereignty? America is telling you don't trade with China, and we oblige, we obey. What are we talking about sovereignty? Because our policy space is shaped by the reality of the world. And that is what we are all doing. So if you need to give out something in order to get something bigger, you can't say you have sold your sovereignty, etc., etc. Let us understand sovereignty to mean navigating the rivers of sovereignty, avoiding the falls, and making sure that you run safe. And every country is doing that. Big Russia is even under sanctions. And there are some things you can't tell. Let me give you an example. Gazprom has signed agreement with Ghana with the supply of gas. Very cheap gas, cheap. But we are unable to go ahead after signing because Gazprom is one of the big companies in Russia which are under sanctions. Are we selling our sovereignty? Can't we tell America to go hang whilst we deal with Gazprom? Please, when we talk of sovereignty, it is shaped by the structure of the world.
Yeah.
When we talk of sovereignty, it is shaped by your strengths and your weaknesses. So for me, I don't think we have sold our sovereignty. We went through the motions of our constitutional laws and let Asia 1 go free to the chagrin of some of us. But then that is to the extent to which our country can go, so-called sovereignty.
Okay, Mr. Hussein,
I disagree completely with him. It flies in the face of conventional principles of sovereignty. Sovereignty as a doctrine, as an ideology, originated by reason of exercising control over a determined piece of land, which you call your own.
Is this land your own?
So you have absolute...
Within the global structure. That's the point he's making. Is this land
what he's talking about is what has eaten away the traditional concept of sovereignty.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. But sovereignty, traditionally, and even now significantly, is how, to what extent can I exercise power over a determined piece of land as a country.
But we can't do that.
We can't do that
within this current global.
In the traditional notion of sovereignty, I'm struggling to remember the authority in that area. In the traditional notion of sovereignty, your laws, your courts are sovereign to the extent that they enforce your laws, the laws of your country. In fact, what he suggested, if sovereignty in that traditional sense is taken away, we will go back to the Hobbesian theory of law and life becoming brutish, nasty, and short. Because anybody can overrun you. Okay? So no, I'm saying that within the sovereign Ghana, we have absolute rights to enforce our laws as a country.
Well, and
to determine the patterns of behavior and the rules of engagement in our country.
Can I ask a small question?
Yes.
Has Iran no sovereignty over its own borders? The traditional sovereignty you're talking about.
Yes.
This is the first lessons you learn in international relations.
Yes.
Why can't Iran go ahead and do what they want about nuclear?
Iran cannot go ahead
Russia
and do what...
Why can't they do it?
They can't do it simply because in the traditional sovereignty, immediately after the Second World War, global institutions started to emerge. And whatever Iran sells outside the country will pass through the global institutional network. And so, immediately you deprive Iran the use of those global institutions, it can no longer do it.
So the point is making is that
you can't do it.
Your ability to exercise your sovereignty is subject to global structures.
No,
that is the point that he's making.
Global economic structures.
That Ghana is not immune from that.
No, Ghana.
We need China's resources to survive. And so far as you take China's resources,
I'm just simply saying that
who pays the piper calls the tune. You're subject to China's control.
I'm not as a person, as a citizen of Ghana, subject to any directions or control of China. But
that is an idealistic sense.
I'm subject.
But
No,
in a practical,
I am not.
In a practical sense,
I refuse to
you've
accept
taken
that.
his money.
I refuse to accept that I
dictate
can
to
be
you.
subject to the dictates of China. I refuse to accept it. What is my dignity then as a Ghanaian?
But is that a reality?
That's not reality.
When you were the minister, you signed so many contracts that the Chinese dictated to you who should be the contractors.
No.
The roads contract that you signed with the government, they will tell you, we want this contractor to be.
International practice,
yes,
and international trade practice, and loan administration, where a country gives you a facility, because that facility is coming from that country. That country, if it elects to participate, they have the first right
exactly
of
the point.
It's a practice.
No,
it's not about sovereignty.
But even that the point.
The sovereignty, it's not a point.
Because this is the point.
No,
Understand.
No.
This loan you've taken, you will pay back.
No, understand.
It's not free.
Understand.
So why don't you then determine
the sovereignty
who executes
is
the
your decision to go there and take or not.
But we need to wrap up. But this is also important. And then finally, this censure, Vladimir also says it's a wild goose chase. And the Constitution seems to back him because the president has a final say, even if you win 2/3 at the end. The president has a final say on whether to go by the parliamentary decision or not. That is if Osafo Marfo doesn't resign on the back of the censure.
I'm not here to quarrel with the views of Dr. Judasu. I won't quarrel with the views of Judasu. What I can say for sure is that this is a novelty. It's a huge step. In fact, we know one can close his eyes to the gravity of the consequences of such a motion. And so we know the obstacles that we can run into. But no one should also delude himself to thinking that parliamentarians are robots and that they cannot decipher what is right from the country.
I'm saying, assuming that you even get your majority side to support you, the presidency has a final say.
I, as a lawyer, have a view that immediately we get the majority to censure Osafo Marfo, that decision becomes an act of parliament.
It's binding on the president?
It becomes an act
of parliament. But the constitution that you're citing says the president may accept your recommendation.
I'm going to leave it there for the time being.
Well, that's an interesting one. Vlad mentioned that. I'm thanking for final 30 seconds for you before we wrap up.
Right. I believe it's very interesting that we are trying to test the Constitution. Those ones that are lying dormant, we're trying to see how they work. So I'm happy with that as a researcher and as an intellectual. But I don't think we are going to succeed the way we are doing it.
That's what Dr. Vladimir mentioned. So Inusa Fuseni. Safe trip, though, by the way. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I hope you have been educated on this clause that has never been activated before. I am, definitely. Thank you for watching. My name is Evans Mins. Enjoy the rest of the evening.